Well, what is up, Vibrant Church? My name is Pastor Marco. I'm the lead pastor here. I lost about 5 inches and changed my hair color, and my nose grew twice as big. But no, I'm not Pastor Marco. My name is Pastor Brad Heathcock. I am the students pastor, if you can't tell by my slap humor. And I am going to be, I guess, the special surprise today. I don't know if you will all consider it a special surprise, but I appreciate the kind words. But welcome to week number 5 of our series called Different. We here at Vibrant Church think that you need to be able to think different so that we can be different, so that ultimately we can make a difference in the lives of those people around us. And the way that we're going to be attacking this today is through visible love. We as Christians need to be different in how we show visible love to those people around us. See, we believe that God has given each and every one of us a specific plan and purpose for our lives. There's one commonality that we all have and we all share, and that is that our goal is to take as many people to heaven with us as we can. The difference is the way that we do that. Whether it's through the family that God has placed you in or the vocation and where you work, we all have a duty, a plan, a purpose to take as many people to heaven with us as we can. And as we talk about visible love, I think it's important because I don't know if you've ever read this book called The 5 Love Languages by a guy named Gary Chapman, but what he talks about is that there are 5 different love languages in which ways they are the ways that people receive and send love. Okay, the way that people send and receive love. And I don't think that we need to take this super overboard with that book, all right? It's definitely not part of the Bible, right? But I think that we need to keep that in mind when it is that we witness to our friends and our family, because people send and receive love in different ways. And so we could be more effective with the people that are around us, the people that God has placed in our day-to-day life, if we understand that people send and receive love in different ways. And as Christians, we need to be effective with the people that God has given us. I'm glad that these chairs are just that far away because I got some preach and spit going, so you'll have to forgive me. Nobody's going to want to touch this mic after this. No. See, I don't know if you're kind of like me. When I was growing up, it's invite people to church, and that's how I'm going to show love to those people around me. Well, I did my job. I checked the box. I invited somebody to church. But to me, sometimes, especially nowadays, that can seem like cold calling somebody for business, right? It's like, hey, I left you a voicemail. The rest is up to God. You know, I did my job. And God will do his part, but I think that we could be more diligent in how we do ours. See, if we just cold call people or cold invite them to church, we need to be able to see the fruit in that. So we can't just throw out a blanket statement or a blanket invite for every single person. And we're going to talk about that as we go into the word today. See, each and every one of us have a circle of influence. There's specific people that God has placed in our lives that we will have more of an effect on than anybody else, because there's people in your life that I will never see. Right? There's people in your life that Pastor Marco will never see, that anybody who you would expect to share the word of God in their life will never see, but you will. In fact, you'll see them often, maybe every day. And so that is your calling. That is your circle of influence that God has given you. And so we need to be diligent with that. And so that brings me to one of my Bible verses that I'm going to put up today, if we could get that on the screen right here. Luke 6:32, and this is just to prove to you, that what I'm saying is true, okay? If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you if you are good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. See, even people who are lost like people who like them, right? We all like people who like us, but how much harder is it to love people who you don't like? Or more than that, love people who don't like you and that don't like you, that are throwing dirt on your name, right? They're lying on you. But God has called us as Christians to be different in the way that we show visible love. We have to love those who hate us because that's different. We're called to be different. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to get this thing moving. Father, I just thank you for every, I almost said student because I'm too used to talking to my students, but I pray for every individual that's in here, God. I just pray that you would open up our hearts, God, open up our minds to receive a message from you, God. I pray that it wouldn't be my words that are coming through this microphone, Lord, but it would be your words, God. And as we continue in this service and the Cowboys are getting ready for their game today, I just pray that Eli Manning's pinky toe would just get a little sore and that Dak Prescott's arm would get a little strong, and Zeke would go for 3 touchdowns, and my fantasy team would win this week. Amen. Thanks for bringing that one up. Well, if you're like me, your first date didn't go so good, all right? Now, I'm a Southern gentleman, okay? And so my dad taught me well. He taught me, to mind your manners, look the father in the eye, shake his hand, tell him, all the stuff that, where you're going to go, what time you'll have him back, and then follow through on your word. And so as I got ready for my first date, I buttoned up my shirt. I put my Doc Martens on, right? And man, no pictures, Mom and Dad, please. And I hopped into my 1989 Jeep Grand Cherokee, y'all. That thing was ballin', okay? The only thing about that, and I can't really be too upset because I was fortunate enough to have my parents, give me that car, and then I later on had to work for one that would not shake whenever I would go over 60 miles an hour. So whenever I was on my date, I went 59. How many of you guys know that, right? So we're cruising, baby. I pulled up to the house and I knocked on the door. I knocked on the door and I said, "Hey, Mr. So-and-so, my name's Brad. I'll be taking your daughter out tonight, and we're just gonna go watch a movie, sir, and maybe some dinner, I promise. And I'll have her back by 9 o'clock. I mean, unless the movie goes long. Crap, I didn't look at what time the movie was. I promise I'll have her back in time." Right? I'm super nervous. Here she comes down, and she's looking, good or whatever, and I'm like trying to not look at her in front of the father. I'm like, whatever, we're just gonna make it, we're gonna go. So we go on our date, and I'm not the smoothest guy, as you could probably tell, but I thought that if I was a good, nice gentleman, that maybe good, nice things would happen, right? And so we go and we're eating, and I'm trying to have topics of conversation, and it's not going so well. It's not going so well. We're at dinner, and I'm asking her, how's her food? I'm asking her, what's your favorite color? All the basic necessities, right? And at first, she was talking to me, and then she's kind of retracting a little bit. And I'm like, okay, think of something quick, Brad. Think of something quick. You got to get this going back in the right direction. And so I try to ask, well, what are you interested in? Do you like to read books? I don't read books, but do you like to read books? And it's just not going anywhere. And we bared through the movie. I didn't make no moves, students. I did not make no moves, all right? You mind your manners on the date, all right? You be a gentleman. But, there's not much talk in the movie, and on the ride home, she's real quiet, and so I go ahead and I take her to back up to the door, and I ain't going to pull no funny business, okay? I'm just going to be a gentleman. I was going to go in for a hug, say goodnight. Here, Mr. So-and-so, here's your daughter back, right? And as I go in for this hug, she gives me one of these. And I said, hold the phone. Now, I know I'm not a 10, okay? I'm not Fabio, but I am definitely not a... You know what I'm saying? I'm like, come on, work with me now. I just want a hug. We can do a side hug. It's going to be all right. And I'm like, listen, I know, this face, this nose, and all that goes into it aren't that great, but did I do something to offend you? Did I do something to upset you? She looks at me and keeps her distance, obviously, and says, no, you've been fine. You've been a great gentleman. I was like, well, what is it? What did I do wrong? And she just goes, Brad, I just got to tell you, your breath is so bad. It is the worst thing I have ever smelled in my entire life. She said, every time you open your mouth, the odor that comes out is unbearable. I couldn't wait to get home. And when you leaned in, I just had enough. I said, well, you could have offered me some gum. I mean, the point of that story, other than to embarrass myself, is that sometimes you can say the right things, but it doesn't matter. What matters is how you say them, right? And so I thought I was saying the right things. I was going about it the right way. I was trying to be a gentleman, but my bad breath kept me from being able to communicate what it is that I was trying to say. So we're going to talk about ways you can show visible love, I promise. And I'm going to show you 3 ways that I think that we need to be experts on how it is that we go about showing visible love. I'll get that later. The first one is with our words, right? The first one is with our words. Women, ladies, you guys are really good at this. You use your words very well. In fact, if I'm going to be honest, sometimes I hear some conversations going on in the teacher's lounge, and I'm like, I don't know what exactly is going on. It goes like this. Tina, my goodness, girl, you are wearing that blue dress so well. Me, I don't look good in blue, but you, girl, you rock that blue. And I'm in the fridge, right? I pull one of these like, okay, was that a compliment? Or was that a passive-aggressive diss saying, Tina, your color's not blue? And before I get caught up in the drama, I just kind of go on my way, right? Fellas, you guys know what I'm talking about. Has your wife ever asked you, do I look good in this dress? And you're like, yeah, babe, you're fine. Fine? Fine. Fine. No, fine. I look fine. No, babe. No. It's okay. I look fine in this dress, right? No, babe, you look fine, girl. I mean, babe, you look fine, right? Like, you are fine, right? I know that that's never happened to me, but maybe some of you guys have had experiences like that. But the way that you say things matters. Words matter. As Pastor Marco was talking about a couple of weeks ago, choosing to speak life. That matters, and as Christians, we need to be experts about speaking life and choosing our words correctly, and not only that, but saying them correctly. Why is it we have such a hard time sometimes to compliment each other on the strengths that we see in each other, right? I think that as Christians, we need to be confident in who we are because of whose we are, so that we can speak life to the people around us without having to worry about, am I saying something nice about you and ultimately putting myself down? It's almost like we don't say nice things to other people because then people might not recognize the nice things about us. We feel like there's one piece of pie, right? And there's only so many slices. And if I give you a slice, well, that's a slice I don't get. Our students are mirroring our actions. Cyberbullying, bullying in school is at an all-time high because students have learned that if I put down someone else, well, that's somebody else not putting me down, and ultimately that raises me up. We have learned to put others down so that we don't become the targets, but if we could get our students to understand that there's more pie to make, right? We can put each other up together. It's not I have to put you down so I get up. We can build together, right? And we have to model that for our students, and we have to model that for the people in our circles of influence, because I know if you're like me, you have a boss who doesn't always say the things that you want him to say or her to say, right? They will ask you to do things, or they will come up with a new management system, right? And wow, we can't wait to implement that, can we? I mean, woo, that was the best idea you've had yet, boss man. That's how we all react, right? No, that's not how we react. Because as soon as we're in the teacher's lines, I can't believe. Are you serious? So now I got to prep for a 6 weeks benchmark and a 9 weeks test. Do they even understand how long it's going to take me to get these Scantrons through this machine? I don't think they thought about that. It's about the kids, y'all. Right? My teachers in the crowd are like, preach. But the deal is the reason it's so important we show visible love correctly with our words are because the people in your life are going through the same grind as you. So how you react matters. The words you use matter because they're going through the same thing you are, and you can react differently. See, most people are going to react the way that I just did, right? This is dumb. This is stupid. I don't want to do this. Do they have any idea what they're doing? And that's easy to say, right? But what's harder to say? Hey, look, I'm not a big fan of this either, but you know what? They're in a position of leadership. I don't know the day-to-day decisions that they have to make. I know this is going to be a burden on us, but hey, I bet if we have the right attitude about it, we can get it done. Okay, let's be honest. Nobody's going to say that, right? Maybe not that way. But we can say it in a way, and we can react in a way that is going to speak life, that is going to bring some kind of a positivity to it, because ultimately, positivity spreads. It's just harder to start. Positivity spreads. It's just harder to start. It's hard to be the one who is going to be like, I know I don't like this. I know I don't want this. I know y'all don't like this, but hey, I mean, ultimately, we got to do it, right? So why don't we do it to the fullest degree? And if it works, right? But if it doesn't work, maybe they'll change it. Maybe not, but maybe. We can hope, right? I remember that words have had a huge impact on my life. My father, when I was going through a really hard time in my life, I will cry. This will happen. I was going through a really hard time in my life. I had made some major mistakes at a very pivotal time in my life. And my dad chose his words well. We're in the car, and I'm just sitting there. I'm zoned out. I don't want to talk about it. And he just looks at me, and he says, Brad, you're going to beat this. You know why? Because you're a winner. You can overcome this because you're a winner. In my rebellious stage, I didn't say a word. I just sat there. Stupid, who cares? I'm a winner, guys. Those words stuck with me. And I won, in a way, eventually. But to this day, my father gave me an example of how it is I'll parent my kids. Son, whatever it is you face, you can win. You know why? Because you're a winner. Now, he might lose at every single thing he ever does, but he's a winner because he's my boy, right? And he can overcome it. It's not always about winning the game. It's about how you played. Did you give your best effort? Did you try your hardest? Did you work your hardest? Did you put everything into it and you came up short? Well, guess what? You might not have won the game, but you won the battle, right? And as a coach, that's a really hard pill for me to swallow, but I understand that words don't always have an immediate visible impact, but when they reach us, they root in us. And so that brings me to my next point, which is our actions. Our actions. We need to be experts at how we show visible love with our actions, because to some, actions speak louder than words. To some, because that might be one of their love languages, right? Acts of service, right? To some, they don't care how much you talk about it. They don't care if you compliment them, but hey, you go do something for them, man, you won them over. And as we are going into our community, as we're talking with the people in our circles of influence, we need to be able to recognize that some people need to see our actions back up our words, not just our words, right? And I don't know if what your love languages is, but I challenge you to go onto the website, just look up the 5 love languages, you'll find it, and see what your spouse's love language is. See what your kids' love languages are. Figure out how to send and receive love effectively with your family, because it does matter. It makes a big difference. My wife's love language is, she is like 5 of 5, right? Words of affirmation. Nah, I'm not going to cry again. Not twice. If you want to make my wife's day, you just tell her, some kind of word of affirmation. Hey, you look pretty today. Not passive aggressively, right? But, hey, you look pretty today. Hey, I try to tell her all the time she's my little superhero. My wife works in anti-human trafficking organization. She's outdoing me. But she's awesome, and so I try to tell her more. But for me, my love language is actions, because I want to see that you're about it, right? Don't just talk to me about what you want to do, but I want you to actually do it. And that's how I also give love, too. I like to be about what I'm going to do. If I say I'm going to do it, I want to do it. And if I don't, I apologize profusely. I feel like I'm reading a Dr. Seuss book. So one of the things I always hear at work, and I'm sure you've heard this too, is that's not in my job description. That's not in my job description. I always kind of smile because, most teachers leave school whenever it ends, and I'm there for another 2 hours coaching. But, it's in my job description, right? I teach my students this. I say 90% of the people, I call it the 90% rule. I made this up, by the way. It's not been, tried and tested, but we'll go with it. In my experience, 90% of the people I come into contact with are just trying to do the bare minimum to get by, right? 90% of the students that I have in my class are just trying to do the bare minimum to get by, just the bare minimum so they won't fail the class, right? 90% of the people that I come into contact with, and it might be a little less, but it might be a little more, are just trying to do the bare minimum so that they don't get fired, right? Just so they can kind of coast under the radar, make it, right? And I'm not sitting up here spewing judgment and acting like I'm like the 10% for sure every time. But what I am saying is that if you want to stand out, if you want to be different, don't be in the 90%. Be in that 10% that you don't have to go above and beyond what it is that you're being asked to do. You just have to do what you're being asked to do. I mean, it's amazing for my teacher friends, and I'm sorry to just only be doing teacher examples, but when a student is listening to you during class, does all their work, puts their name on it, and hands it in, you're like, wow, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you, sir, ma'am, Kimmy, Jim. Thanks, Jim. And I'm like, I just thought about that one day because I teach a Bible class at the high school, and this kid turns in his work. He wrote complete sentences with no IDKs or LOLs. And I was like, thanks, Jose. Like, I really appreciate that, man. Like, I'll take you out to lunch, like, that's awesome. But that's so crazy. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but whenever I was in school, if I didn't turn in my work, mom and dad were going to get on to me, and I'm going to get a 0 and fail. And it was like, you just do what the teacher asks you to do. It's this crazy concept, right? But nowadays, I'm fighting to just get kids to put their names on their worksheets and to just fill out the whole thing and to not write, I don't know, on every answer. They're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, find out, because you got a book right there, It's nuts. But they made an impact on me. The 10% of people, and it's probably less than that in my Bible classes, because, who wants to read the Bible in school? Tyrion, you were supposed to raise your hand, man. Come on. But the 10% who turned in their stuff, they made an impact on me. I'm like, wow, you're different. You're actually here for the right reason. How much more so do we need to be in the 10% whenever we're interacting with our coworkers, with our family, with people that we see in the supermarket, with people that we see here in the Saginaw community? How much more so as Christians should we be that 10% with our actions, right? Be different, showing visible love. I'm real big on my students picking up trash, picking up after themselves. I make a really big deal about it, and I assign lunch attentions like crazy, but it rubs off on my athletes. In fact, yesterday I got choked up. I had to, channel my inner man to not get all choked up. But after the football games that we had yesterday, my students were running around the field picking up trash and throwing it away. And they ran up to me, hey, coach, you need us to pick up the field for you? I was like, that'd be great. That'd be real great. I appreciate that. Guys, you just, make me so proud. But they picked it up, and it's because I modeled that, And it's not a pat on my back, but it's a pat on their back because positivity spreads. It's just hard to start. I think about my actions in showing visible love, and I think about the story of Mary Magdalene washing Jesus' feet with perfume and with her tears, because she didn't have a lot to give, right? And as she is pouring out, she's crying, she's worshiping Jesus, she's kissing his feet, she's washing his feet, she's pouring out expensive perfume on his feet. Jesus is sitting there letting her do that. I always find that really odd. Like, Jesus is supposed to be this super humble guy, but yet he's accepting this super humble gift from another person. And then I realized sometimes some people, all we have to give is our actions. Sometimes all we have to give is our actions. And sometimes we have to let people do things that are going to be effective for them to share their love, right? And so sometimes accepting gifts or accepting actions are just as important as doing them yourselves. So the next time someone's trying to do something nice for you, which is hard for me, it's really hard for me, to be like, no, you don't have to do that, I'll do that, whatever. Just say thank you. Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate you trying to help me. You don't know how much of a help that is for me. You just made my day. The next point that I have, and my last point, is our time. Time is the one thing that we all have the same amount of, that we all start with. Now, I know before you start going off into what I would probably be doing is saying, well, you don't know my schedule, and I don't. But we still have the same amount of time. You might be busy, but you still have the same amount of time. And that's why I think that our 10-10 time here at Vibrant Church is so important. The first 10 minutes of your day, you spend talking with God, praying with God. The next 10 minutes, you spend reading your Bible. It's a great way to start your day. It's a great way to align yourself for what the task that God is going to have for you in your day-to-day actions. And it's a great way to be able to take each day at its time. Each day at a time. If we had this idea of my time is not my own, but my time is a gift from God, how much more diligent will we be with the free time that we do have? Now, I got to call myself out real quick because my wife is going to do it if I don't. I play way too much 2K whenever I could be doing a lot more encouraging things. But I'm playing against the students and I'm winning, babe, so I don't know what you want me to do. It's evangelism, okay? I teach them how to lose right, it's just... Some of y'all are like, I don't want to play you. Have you ever come across a person on the road who just flies by you and you were already going like 5 over? It drives me nuts. I'm a cruise control driver. Any cruise control drivers out there? I'm a cruise control driver because I don't know. I don't want to have to worry about it. I just want to go. I don't want to get pulled over. My wife is a lead foot driver, and so me and her kind of get into it on who's driving and who's not driving. But I do this experiment all the time because I'm a cruise control driver. I'll be cruise controlled at like 70, and I'll have somebody just, speed by me as if I was just like the biggest nuisance in the world. I was going so slow. How dare I be in the left lane, right? And they speed by me, and I don't touch a thing. I stay at 70. And then I wait 5 minutes, and I've caught up to that person. Less than 5 minutes sometimes. I've caught up to that person. I'm actually passing them, and I give them that as I go on by, right? Jesus loves you, you know what I'm saying? But to some people, their time is much more important than others in their mind, right? Have you ever had that very impatient person waiting for their fast food order? I'm like, dude, it's going to be like 2 minutes. You going to make it, all right? But they're being rude to the cash register or the cashier, and they're asking, when's my food going to be done? First of all, I learned a very valuable lesson. Just a side note, this is for free. My dad taught me this lesson. Whoever touches my food is my best friend. Okay, so it could take 2 hours. I'm gonna be smiling, saying thank you so much for getting me my Whataburger, fries, and my Coke because you touched my food. And as soon as I get it, I'm out. But until then. If you're a husband in here, if you're a father, you know that your time is not your own. Your time is now being dedicated to providing for your family, right? Everything that you do is going to be with them in mind. Because as a husband, my first job is to take care of my wife and my family, and then everything else, right? I'm sorry, I'm just trying not to cry here. So you guys understand that time, although we all start with the same amount, is very important. Because if I give my time to somebody, that quality time, that's important. Some people's love language is quality time. And so as we come across the people in our community, at work or whatever, sometimes teachers, y'all know, again, teacher reference, some people like to vent, right? Some people like to vent about what's going on. And if you give them that time, not join in the toxic nature of the conversation, but just hear them out. That'll be very, very effective in your influence with that person, right? I think about this Bible story. You've probably heard of it. It's called the story of Zacchaeus. You know, Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he? He's up in that sycamore tree, and Jesus is walking through the town, and all these people are following him, and he's doing his Jesus thing, signing autographs, you know. And then all of a sudden he turns, and he says, "Hey, yo, Zacchaeus, meet you at the crib. I'm coming to your place tonight." Why do we read over that so fast? Like, guys, Jesus just invited himself over for dinner. Like, what the heck, man? Like, I want to be like Jesus. You know what I'm saying? "Hey, Bryce, your house tonight for dinner, all right?" Cool. Some baby back ribs or something. Let's go. He invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house, and he has dinner with him. And Zacchaeus, if you don't know, is not a well-liked person in the community. In fact, he'd be labeled as a sinner, as a less than, right? But he goes over to Zacchaeus' house, and not only does he do that, he says to Zacchaeus in front of everybody, this huge crowd, "Hey, Zacchaeus, I'm coming over to your house tonight because I want to spend some time with you." Zacchaeus, if you look at it from his perspective, he wasn't in the crowd, you know, because he was a wee little man, right? So he climbed up on the tree just to get a look, right? And what's going on in his mind, I can only, infer is, man, I really wish that I could be there with him, but I'm not worthy of his time. I'm just in the way. I'm just this guy that everybody looks down on, that nobody really cares about probably. And even if I tried to be good, people wouldn't give me a chance. And so, man, that's so awesome that Jesus is here, but I'm going to stay over here in this tree. But what Zacchaeus needed was a little bit of time. And whenever Jesus calls him out and says, "Hey, we're hanging out tonight. Get the FIFA ready," right? He goes over there and he speaks Zacchaeus' love language by saying, "I'm going to spend some quality time with you, and I don't care who knows it." Some people need us to spend quality time, which is my absolute last thing, and I wanted to put this on the screen. It's called barbecue first. I believe in the barbecue first, and I don't know if we do have it, but it's the barbecue first principle. I think that before you cold call or cold invite somebody to church, you need to barbecue first. And what I mean by that is that you should probably do life with somebody outside of church before you invite them inside of church. That's why our groups are so important. You should barbecue first, and go over to your neighbors and invite them over. "Hey, we're having a barbecue. I don't know if you want to bring the kids. I don't know what you got going tonight, but hey, open door policy, come on over. We're firing up the grill. Bryce is paying for it, and we're just going to go with it," right? Hamburgers, hot dogs, whatever it is you want, and no pressure. You don't got to come, but you're fully welcome to come if you want to. Spend some quality time with us. I'd love to get to know you better. You can barbecue first at your job by not always having an agenda, but actually caring about the people that it is that you interact with. You can barbecue first with your kids by watching for them to do something right instead of getting on to them for doing something wrong. Barbecue first is a principle. It's not in our bylaws, but here at Vibrant Church, I know we believe in the barbecue first mentality. And as we launch this church, again, Pastor Marco said that we're in our soft opening. But as we launch this thing full scale and we want to make an impact on this community, we got to barbecue first. We got to set the atmosphere. We got to go out into the community and make ourselves known. We got to get into these schools and we got to show these kids that we love them and we want them here. And so as you go through your week this week, I challenge you, fire up the grill, metaphorically or literally, and barbecue first with the people around you. Me and my wife, we believe in Vibrant Church. We packed up and we moved out here to a house in Bedford, Texas. And as we're moving into the house, we have in mind our students because we want to have a house that is open to be able to serve as many kids as we can at a time. 3 times, really? Because we want to barbecue first. We want to let them know how much we care about them before we just try to get them through and in and out the doors. And we got to do that with the adults in this community too. And so, again, my challenge to you is just to recap real quick. Show invisible love to the people that are in your circle of influence with your words, with your actions, and with your time. Have that in mind as you go throughout the week.